Good morning. I'm Thomas Kim, and the TriMet's Board Vice President. As President Lewis is unable to be here in person today, I'll be presiding over today's meeting. Welcome to today's Board of Directors meeting for TriMet for February 25, 2026. We're gathered again at One Main Place in our TriMet boardroom for our board meeting. We're also live streaming on YouTube. We have 6 board members present, 4 board members present in person, and 2, JT and President Lewis, are attending virtually. Thank you again for being with us. Before we proceed with the official board meeting, I'd like to invite up TriMet's Chief Safety and Security Officer, Andrew Wilson, for a safety moment, please.
Thank you, Vice President Kim, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for those of you that showed up for public testimony today, too. We appreciate that. Safety is first here at TriMet, so we're going to begin the meeting with a quick safety moment. I want to remind everybody that we do have fire extinguishers and AEDs on premises to take care of folks if we do have an emergency. I would like to ask for one volunteer in the room to call 911 should we have an emergency, and that's a Vitco. Thank you. And who will go and get our AED if we have an emergency? Our Director of Safety, Craig McDonald, I saw. So thank you for that. I do want to remind folks we are managing to a max occupancy of this space of 80. We're doing fine on that. We were keeping those numbers right, but we do just want to make sure that we maintain a safe space here. If we do have an emergency, we're going to exit through the staircase. If you have mobility concerns, please find myself and any of the security staff, and we'll assist you with the elevator and getting you out of this space. But we just want to make sure that your safety is kind of right in focus. We want as many people here to enjoy this public time of testimony as we possibly can. So the staging area for where we evacuate to is the Starbucks. I made the joke last time that we can all follow Anessa Vitco to the Starbucks because she knows right where it is. So, but just wanted to put that in focus for us today, and look forward to the meeting. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Now we begin the public forum with those who are present and have signed up to testify. Members of the public who wish to provide testimony but could not be here in person may join us virtually after we have heard from those who are present and have signed up to testify. For those who are offering testimony, please direct your comment to TriMet and our transit-related services rather than other topics. We also ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes. You will note that there will be a time indicator to help you comply with the request, and we ask that you respect the time. If you're unable to limit your comments to 3 minutes, you may provide additional comments in writing. TriMet staff can provide an email address for you to send written comments to the board. Also, please know that we appreciate your testimony. If you ask a question, request information, or raise an issue, it is noted in the record. And when appropriate, General Manager will ask TriMet staff to get back to you after the meeting. Now, I will call up to the testimony table 2 folks at a time. Our first 2 folks testifying this morning are Marianne Schwab and James Hemphill. Please. Good morning.
It's been quite a morning. Thank you. My name is Marianne Schwab. I live in the Sunnyside neighborhood, and the buses that I drive with TriMet is the number 75, the number 15, and 14. And the 14 got me here. I just kind of got last. I was understanding it was the second stop. Well, that was happened to be up to about whatever. I'm here. Thank you. I'm very, very concerned with TriMet, our fire department, and trying to think, DMV, and all of these groups working with TriMet on the same page. I'm here to address public safety, crossing streets on Chavez from Stark Street all the way down to Powell Boulevard. People are racing through because of the work being done on 82nd. They're coming down, and if the lights are too long, they wingle right through a neighborhood street. I've seen the same gray car do that 3 different times, walking from Freddy's with my walker. I don't want these cars going through our neighborhoods, and that's what's happening. We've got to slow it down. I've talked to the police officers. No one is paying attention to the pedestrian crossing streets. I have a walker, there are people with dogs on leashes, there are people with their groceries, and all of these things somehow end up on your bus. People that are exhausted in clothes, falling asleep, people coming in with their laundry baskets because they've been to the laundry back and forth, people coming in with the big green bags filled with pop cans and who knows what, and some of them so tired they've actually fallen asleep on your bus. And what I really appreciate are the teenagers that get on the bus, because often I take the 75 over to the senior center. There's a lot of activities over there. I get on the bus, and sometimes all the teenagers are there heading home. They are the politest, nicest young people that we have to look forward to. When I get on, the bus driver doesn't even have to, they just move, and I can sit down where I can watch. I don't miss my street. I am very, very happy with TriMet. I'm happy with the fire department and DMV and everybody working, but they need to pay attention to the pedestrian. And what I have found out is that we are going to be voting. I want all of you to vote really hard on May 19th, because our governor would not allow the people that are the Taxpayers Association of Oregon, who have been working for us since 199, and the man in charge all this time is Jason Williams, Chief President, and Senator Bruce Starr, and Representative Ed Dial. They have worked very hard, but they were blocked. They could not go to the state so we could have a voice on raising our taxes. And I want everybody to, I don't know what that is.
Your allotted time has
I'm
concluded.
sorry.
If you would be able to
I
finish
just
up.
want people to vote. Our teenagers don't know to vote because the governor has lowered, you turn your report cards in and you have to meet that to graduate. It's been lowered by 2 different governors, and this one, I had a list of the things that she has misspent our money on. If you find 20 million and report it, you get fired. What does that tell every employer working for the city or any public office? And what really, really makes me angry is that your arts and the school tax, they just found the 2 figures are $40 million unspent money. Where are these attorneys? Where are these bookkeepers? They're
Thank you, Mary Ann.
frozen. They're not going to report them. Please vote, people, on the 19th, because they're counting on us not voting. It's Peacock. It's our Rose Festival is going on. People are graduating from college, from high school. We look at the boat races. We are so busy. She's counting on us not voting.
Thank you.
Please, like leaves coming out of Lawhurst Park, everyone has a right to vote, and I'm begging them to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you for your testimony, Marion. All right, next up, I'd like to invite up James. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's James Hemphill. I was here last month concerning bike rack safety. I'm here for a matter of record for the public to witness, and next month for the public forum. My concern was my bike is an older antique, and the bus rack, with the help of customer service, maintenance. She contacted maintenance for making sure that the bike racks the J-hook has the spring. Its report number is 779192. And then concerning the bike rack and bicycles, there's a report number 779193, contacting bus maintenance to make sure that drivers are actually checking to make sure the bike rack works. to see if there is a protocol. Now, as a matter of public safety, on Thursday, February 5th at 8:51 a.m., I contacted customer relations, contacted John. He wanted to know, I wanted to talk to Roxy. Roxy's the one that's been helping. I related the story about the bus rack, the bike bus rack, and he said to me, quote, unquote, TriMet's going through budget cuts. You expect TriMet to change the racking system for one bicycle? No, John. I'm expecting TriMet to do something to guarantee all bicycles have safety on the bicycle. So that was kind of a slap in the face. Not what I wanted to hear. On that same day at 3 p.m. on February 5th, bus number 3708 allowed a third wheelchair on the bus, and he sat in the loading area. There were already two on the bus. That's a violation of TriMet policies. On Friday, February 13th at 4:55 on bus number 3324, Justin had the call. The bus driver allowed a 5-gallon can of flammable liquid on the bus across from the, which is another violation of TriMet policy. This is the concern is public safety. We're paying for a service for TriMet, and these bus drivers are not adhering to their own policies. Rules and guidelines need to be covered by and with awareness and diligence. And just for my own safety or my own knowledge, how many people in this room rely on TriMet to get around? Show of hands, please. Okay. You're being put at risk by these behaviors, by these actions. I'll wrap this up. I realize my time is up. Last month, after the meeting, JC had addressed these concerns, took my contact information. I have not heard from JC. Granted, it is a month, but the thing is, these are two buses, two bus lines. How many bus lines are there? How many drivers are there? How many infractions to your own policy are being violated by bus drivers allowing these things to happen? Ladies and gentlemen, those and theys, I appreciate your time, and please address this. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We'll move now to those who have signed up to provide virtual testimony. Is Ms. Laura Slaby not available? We'll move to Mr. Thomas Craig, please.
Member of Bus Riders Unite. First off, thank you for your support of TriMet taking a strong approach to increasing access and transit reliability on 82nd Avenue. Bus Riders Unite members show up here each month because it's important that you know there are folk in your jurisdiction ready to support you when you show up for your riders. Living by transit is wildly inconvenient. It's not easy to organize riders, but our small team of volunteers, like yourselves, is working to rebuild and do just that. You need to hear from your riders in long form, and including those who feel disenfranchised or for any other reason don't want to communicate through cookie cutter surveys that ask us how we'd like to feel the pain of our region's failure to live up to its stated values. That pain is getting real. Next week, the frequent service route 75 on Lombard near my home will start running less than every 20 minutes at 6 p.m. It already runs every half hour after 9:30 p.m. This is one of your highest ridership lines and a critical connection to MAX lines and the FX2. The evening is not peak service, and yeah, sometimes the buses aren't too full, but there are a whole lot of trips that happen on the later side, and increasingly, we're going to find that the buses are less full because they're less frequent. You've heard us say it before, but neither we nor you can say it enough. You need way more revenue. Years in the future, yes, we hope to participate in a funding task force and support its work, but also, frankly, tomorrow and yesterday, actual vehicle revenue service miles have barely increased on the TriMet system in 30 years, even while our region's population has increased about 50%. We're not living up to our values as a region, and it's time for TriMet to get pushy about that. That's what we're doing. In December, we floated the idea for Portland to assign PSEF funds to stave off some of your service cuts. That idea doesn't seem to be moving forward, but city councilors were interested. Where was the loud support from TriMet? Last month, we informed each of you that members of the State Senate Transportation Committee were open to floating a bill that would allow TriMet to raise your payroll tax. We defined the relevant specifics. We didn't get a response. So while last month we heard frustration from you about how we aren't advocating for transit in other venues that matter, none of you took the time to respond to our call to action when we did just that, at least not anywhere we could see. We get that you're volunteers, but you're volunteers with power, and we need you to exercise that power. We need you to show up for your riders even more. So again, thank you for your work to get a bunch of bus lanes on 82nd. That's important. But how important will it be when there's no buses running on them except every 30 minutes? Please join us in putting pressure both behind the scenes and publicly on the many regional leaders who are failing you, failing us, and failing the region as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. With no other members of the public signed up to testify, I'll close the public forum. We'll now proceed to the board report section of our business meeting. I will begin by asking Director Graham to present a report from the recent meeting of the Committee on Accessible Transportation. Director Graham, please.
Thank you, and good morning. It's really wonderful to see many members of the committee here in person this morning. We started our committee meeting honoring Claudia Robertson, and I know we will have more time for that this morning, but I will just mention that she has been the vice chair of the CAT since 2001, and she passed away earlier this month. So we shared stories of her leadership. We shared stories of her advocacy. She was an inspiration to all of us and to the CAT, and we will really miss her and her leadership for all of us. I know we'll talk more about her this morning, but I just wanted to share that that was the topmost thing that the CAT committee discussed. The LIFT subcommittee update was shared, including a number of changes to the LIFT service in light of changes to the agency, and I know we also have more about LIFT in our board meeting today. The wayfinding subcommittee update was shared, mostly focused on web content accessibility guidelines that the agency is making to TriMet.org, as well as a pause in adding additional Falcon devices that assist visually impaired riders to receive audio content of the information on the digital displays. The subcommittee also offered to conduct office hours at the Mobility Center in an effort to help riders who are blind or low vision use accessibility technology for wayfinding, and shared a number of other current efforts around tactile improvements that would help others to navigate transit centers. Franklin Uchida, who is our representative on the 82nd Avenue Community Advisory Committee, provided an update noting that the bat lane option is what is moving forward, the more bat lane option, and that currently a lot of the 82nd Avenue work is focused on budget and helping to close the budget gap. The newly elected Community Advisory Committee Chair and CAT Committee member, Ana Diana, shared TV Highway Community Advisory Committee updates, primarily focused on the work the CAC is doing on stop replacement. We held interim committee officer elections. Obviously, there is a vacancy for the CAT Executive Committee, and the nominating committee recommended Patricia Kepler to fill the interim vacancy until elections are held later this year. And Richard Hunter was also nominated to serve as the Executive Committee member at large. TriMet staff shared updates on new committee applicants. We had over 20 interviews scheduled for new members of the CAT committee. And Justin also shared an update on the APD Advocacy Award, which is a new biennial award from the Oregon Department of Human Services, Office of Aging and People with Disabilities, that recognizes community-rooted advocacy across Oregon. The committee provided a lot of feedback and talked about the fixed route report from TriMet. ADA pass-ups on fixed route buses increased 33% from the prior year. The committee desires immediate action be taken to mitigate the impacts on riders utilizing mobility devices so they are able to travel on fixed route and do not need to resort to paratransit services. And finally, the focus of the business meeting was on the LIFT service changes resulting from the budget reductions for FY27. Eileen talked about Lyft transitioning from door-to-door service for riders to curb-to-curb service. The Lyft program will also be focused on preserving timely and reliable service with increased information and notification to riders. And several mitigations to the changes were also noted, and the committee had a lot of really good feedback on how that could be rolled out in a really sensitive way so that people understand the changes that could be impacting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Graham. Any questions or comments about the CAT report? Seeing none, I'll ask Director Flowers, who are attending virtually, to present a report from the recent meeting of the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, MPAC. Please. Director Flowers, we can't hear you yet, just so you know.
Can you folks hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about this. I'm in the car on my way back from Salem. I had to testify early this morning, and I'm headed back to you folks shortly here. Should be in person for the remaining 2/3 of the meeting. But just to give a very quick update on the impact meeting that took place last month, really most of what transpired was updates on a few different initiatives that Metro has coming down the pike right now. The first is their Future Visions initiative, which I've talked about in previous board meetings and updated you folks on. They're getting ready to launch an artist residency program and are getting ready to launch their first broad-based community engagement in the month of March, which is exciting. Metro staff also provided an update on the economics of the Portland metro region as it intersects with all of the areas that they work under. And then we also had a brief discussion and update about the SHS program that Metro, of course, oversees. And the next meeting of Impact is going to be tonight. And again, sorry for being virtual here, but I'm looking forward to being in person with you guys shortly.
Thank you, Director Flowers. Any questions or comments for Director Flowers? Seeing none, drive safely. I will provide a report on last week's Finance and Audit Committee meeting. First, our CFO Nancy presented an upcoming FY26 budget transfer that will transfer a total of $28 million into maintenance and IT from other division budgets, and also some from contingency. This budget transfer will come before the board in March through a resolution for approval. Second, the CFO presented a FY27 financial forecast update. She gave us an overview of the state of the economy, resources, requirements, and our 10-year forecast at a glance. The balanced budget scorecard will be updated and shared with board members at a future meeting. Third, we received an overview of the various pass-through payments TriMet receives. The presentation highlighted federal 5310 formula funds and the total STIF biennium funding we receive and how those funds are shared with pass-through agencies or public transportation service providers. The presentation defines straight pass-through payments where TriMet is a conduit and other pass-through funds that are in essence sub-awards to sub-recipients. FY 2025 audit of federal awards was also discussed. It's the audit of our federal awards that was completed in January by our external auditors, Aid Bailey. There were no findings or instances of non-compliance or significant deficiencies. The single audit report is posted on our public website. We received an update on the FY 26-27 STIF plan amendment that will be coming before the board at the meeting today. ODOT allows us to do STIF amendments annually, and this amendment will be updating carryover funds to true up our estimates to actual amounts. This amendment would not increase revenue. That concludes my report. Any questions or comments? Thank you much. Let's see. Now I'll turn it over to the general manager for his monthly report. General Manager Dessou, please.
Morning, Vice President Kim, members of the board, our community partners that are here with us this morning, TriMet staff that's here, and the public. Thank you all for being here with us today. In my report this morning, we'll check in on ridership for January. You'll hear the monthly operations analysis report out. I will share next steps for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project following a major decision on the extent of BAT lanes to include in the project. And then I'll provide you an update on the legislation we have prioritized for this short session of the Oregon Legislature. And then finally, for your planning and our riders, I'll share important dates regarding the service and big changes ahead as we work to solve the ongoing budget gap. So turning to ridership, TriMet provided 5.2 million rides in January. So year to year, our ridership for the month is statistically unchanged. In practical terms, ridership was flat year over year, demonstrating stable demand for our system. Our weekend bus service was the bright spot for the month. Bus ridership increased 3.5% compared to last year. And our frequent service bus line saw even a bigger increase at a 4.2% increase over last year. We also saw a 3.6% increase in bus ridership during typical rush hour periods. Ridership on the MAG system, however, continues to show some decline. We're about 1.7 million rides in January. Overall, MAG's ridership was down 2% from this time last year. I would now like to turn over our monthly operations analysis report to both Les Spittler, our Director of Transit System Support Service, and our Senior Analyst for Operations Planning, Catherine Keeling. They will give you the details.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Good morning, Vice President Kim, President Lewis, members of the board. Catherine and I are here to present the monthly operations analysis for January 2026. Next slide, please.
Our ridership estimates are laid out on slide 2. I would like to mention that this reporting month, January 26, had one less weekday than its year prior baseline of January 2025. And in these situations, I recommend focusing on the week averages, which are shown in the upper left corner. Looking at the total of these 4 modes, our weekly ridership averages are 1.2% higher than last year. And to address any potential confusion, the reason that the combined monthly totals have a year-over-year change of about 0% is directly attributable to the differing number of weekdays and Saturdays. Monthly averages of weekly ridership is a bit of a mouthful, but it's one of my preferred metrics because it provides a consistent baseline for ridership comparisons. Lastly, there were no winter weather events, and that would have a strong impact in ridership either this year or last year. Next slide. The trends across modes are shown in the charts on slide 3. This report is built on a calendar year framework, and as this is the first reporting month in 2026, the lighter colors now represent 2025, and the darker markers will be showing the 2026 values. Ridership across modes came in pretty close to last year's numbers, which is especially apparent when compared to the scale of ridership variation over the course of a calendar year. Next slide.
All right, moving on to bus. I'd like to highlight on-time performance and mean distance between failure for January. In a month that is cold, dark, and prone to challenging environments, bus operations achieved a high mark for on-time performance, which is almost the highest it's been from January all the way back to January of 2025. I also want to highlight mean distance between failure. It increased 22% from December and 29% from last January. The bus maintenance team has continued midlife overhauls on an active fleet, and that has been a major factor in increased reliability. To date, they've completed 285 midlife overhauls of the 664 buses in the active fleet. We've also retired buses from our contingency fleet and 4 out of our 8 hybrid buses, which were our worst performing vehicles. With the removal of those 4 hybrid buses and the vehicles in the contingency fleet, bus maintenance has more labor to focus on the vehicles in our active fleet. Next slide. Similarly, for MAX, I want to call out the same 2 metrics, on-time performance and mean distance between failure. On-time performance is the highest it's been from January 2025 until now. Similarly, for mean distance between failure, it was above the target and higher than all of January 2025. January's metric is a 38% increase from December and a 21% increase from last January. Overall, the most common types of failures are HVAC, door, and propulsion related. Rail equipment maintenance is the closest it's been to its budgeted headcount in years. As you can imagine, having all of their positions filled allows them to focus more on their maintenance activities, and they've hit 100% preventative maintenance activities for both January and February to date. There's no doubt that more frequent preventative maintenance touches on the vehicles and the components has resulted in fewer failures. Next slide, please.
Moving on to ATP. The boarding rides per revenue hour shows continued increase over year prior. This change reflects a tremendous amount of behind-the-scenes initiative, measured choices, and focus on increasing efficiency-oriented efforts. Even slight increases in boarding rides per hour helps to conserve the resources for this vital service. The other performance measures are within the normal ranges of variation. Next slide. For WES, we made a change from reporting mean distance between failure, which last month I explained is very sensitive for WES, and now we will instead be just reporting mechanical failures. It was preferred by our director of WES, and we hope that you will find it appreciably straightforward. This change also changes the favored directionality from wanting mean distance between failure to be higher, and we, of course, would want the number of mechanical failures to be lower. So the format on this slide is different than the other modal overview slides, and so that at the top of the slide is where your eye will want to look for upward trends or high values, and the lower half of the slide is for the lower value being the preferred direction. Next slide. Lastly, we have the 12-month look back with metrics and definitions. Thank you for your time this morning. This concludes our overview.
Any questions or comments for this portion of the GM report? All right, we'll do Director Flowers first and then Kellogg. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Flowers.
Thank you. You guys mentioned a higher incidence of failure for some of the hybrid buses in our fleet. Can you talk about what those are typically tied to and why they've been a little bit less reliable than their non-hybrid counterparts?
Yes, thank you, Director Flowers, for the question. Hybrid buses are harder to maintain due to their complex dual powertrain systems. It includes a combustion engine and an electric motor, which are highly specialized, requires high voltage training and expensive and specialized parts. They face unique reliability issues like frequent stop-start engine wear, battery degradation, and complex sensitive electronics. And those things tend to be buggier and less reliable than buses without those components.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll do Director Kellogg. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Just one quick question, I'm sure you'll be able to explain. The ATP number year over year, almost 14% growth. I see that. I heard you say other programs and things, but that's a big increase. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, we had the privilege of talking with our director of the LIFT program about it, and there is a combination of both the growing demand it is a demand response service, and they are trying to focus on the efficiency of boardings that can be accommodated per revenue hour to try to balance the growing demand with the need to be mindful of the resources that the lift service requires. So they have returned to nearly pre-COVID ridership, and I think that it is important that we're serving the needs of our jurisdiction, and that it has not gone unnoticed, and they have projections for looking into the future and how demographics changing in this region will impact the number of eligible riders. I do believe that Eileen is speaking later today, so really she is the resident expert. But that's why I wanted to discuss and highlight the boarding rides per revenue hour today, because it is the sort of measure that they're looking at to balance the growing pool of demand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any question from Director Frisbee?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I was going to be quiet, but now I have questions. I will confess that I have, and I can see Doug Allen, he'll get mad at me for making this statement, not learned as much about WES as I probably should. But when I look at the WES statistics, and particularly, thank you for highlighting boarding rides per revenue hour, because I found it a really helpful way to look at everything recently. I don't know how to think about WES's numbers, and in particular, what I was trying to think about is, are there other similar lines in other places across the country that could help me sort of categorize WES and have an understanding of, is it improving? Are they seeing the same challenges? Are we doing better or worse? Are there somewhat similar lines that you would recommend we look at when we think about WES? Or is there a framework that you use to think about WES when you think about boarding rides per revenue hour? It's like a philosophical question to a statistic.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Director Frisbee. We can certainly look into other transit properties that would have a similar line for context. WES is unique. It operates on another entity's right-of-way. It does operate Monday through Friday. We do have a physical conductor on the vehicles counting ridership. That's really as much as I could offer at this time, but we can definitely look into it and try to get back to you with a response, unless, of course, Catherine has something better to say than I did.
She looks like she's ready.
She does, yeah, I can tell.
Just, I would like a little more time to explore what the best peer commuter rails would be. I do know that WES is unique in that it was, I think, the country's first suburb to suburb commuter rail. So the number of peers may be small, but it's a great question. Also, the schedule has remained unchanged, so any increases we see in ridership are directly reflected in the number of rides per revenue hour, because the number of revenue hours is not changing. It's another reason why I felt comfortable just reporting the number of mechanical failures, because we don't need a metric that incorporates changes in the amount of miles performed. So I just think that because WES is kind of a special commuter rail, I would like to ask for a little more time to do some proper research.
And your answer can totally be the way you're trying to think about it is not a good way to think about it. And
Might be.
stop. So that's fine. I was just trying to give myself a framework.
Yeah, I think it is a unique commuter rail line, but we can look and see what else is in the possible peer groups.
Thanks.
Thank you. And back to you, General Manager.
Thank you, guys, very much. Appreciate it. Board, before I continue, I would like to mention that we are foregoing the monthly safety and security update, as Chief Safety and Security Officer Andrew Wilson will be providing his annual report during the briefing. So that's coming up at the end of the meeting here. On the 82nd Avenue Transit Project, on February 13th, during a meeting of the project's Policy and Budget Committee, I shared my decision about the extent of bat lanes to pursue as part of this transformational transit project. I directed the team to maximize bat lanes wherever feasible while addressing community concerns, managing risks, and really positioning us to secure federal funding. So by directing the team to advance design for bat lanes on 7 miles of 82nd Avenue between Lombard and Clatsop, except at the intersection with Powell Boulevard, we made clear our commitment to the desired outcomes of the project while being clear-eyed and upfront about the potential risks. Here's the bottom line. Bat lanes are a win for transit. This is the right decision for the project. I'm grateful to the members of the Policy and Budget Committee for their dedication and their commitment to work together through community questions and their own concerns, and then share insights and offer solutions. So we are in a critical window now to align on how we move forward to address the current funding gap brought on by the expanded length of bat lanes, which is estimated around $8 to $10 million. Our partners on board, they understand and have accepted the challenge of working together to identify that funding by July of this year. A study on the economic impact on the businesses along 82nd Avenue where the bat lanes are proposed is moving forward. With support from Metro, the work will be led by the 82nd Avenue Coalition along with our Portland Metro Chamber. So as you know, we've received a medium-high rating from the FTA. Just a couple of weeks ago, the FTA assigned a project management oversight consultant to work with our team to demonstrate project readiness for federal funding. So we are no longer in the planning phase. We now must be laser-focused on project delivery to be successful. So a lot of work is going on. I want to thank the teams, Jamie and her team for moving us forward, and then all of the partnerships around all the regions. So really appreciated that. So let's just keep moving forward there. We are leaving no stones unturned as the work across the organization to solve our annual budget gap. While we've reduced spending across the board, we are also working to identify new and sustainable sources of revenue. So that's why we're working with our lawmakers on HB 4008, a bill in the Oregon legislature that would create a statewide transit funding task force. The ATU, as well as our fellow Oregon transit agencies, are partners and showing up strong support for such a task force. The bill was successfully moved out of the House Transportation Committee with bipartisan support, signaling a strong willingness from the legislature to work seriously on the transit funding problem in the interim before the 2027 session. So a lot of work going on, and also Director Frisbee has informed us as well. She's going to be working with the governor and her team in the future that's going to take place. So we are continuing to engage with the community around service changes and cuts proposed to begin later this year. Service cuts are always, and I want to say this to the public, always a last resort. But this is a necessary step to bring service in line with the resources that we're bringing in and really help close our budget gap for the future well-being of our agents in our region. We have operated for 56 years, and we want to operate for another 56 years. We've taken great care to connect with people who rely on our service and hear how the proposed changes may affect their travels. In fact, we received more than 8,100 responses to the survey that we put out in January. That's a tremendous amount of feedback from the community. Our planning team is making adjustments now to a few of the proposed changes shared last month. We will be sharing the revised service proposals in the public 2 weeks from today on Wednesday, March 11th, and they will be posted on trimet.org/service cuts. A week after that, on Wednesday, March 18th, the board will host a special listening session for riders and community members to share additional feedback on the updated proposal. And the board is scheduled to have its first reading on the service plan ordinance that captures those proposals, as well as hold a public hearing on the ordinance at your March business meeting on Wednesday, March 25th. The board anticipated to vote on the service ordinance at the April 22nd meeting. Vice President Kim, that concludes my report.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Do board members have questions or comments for the General Manager? Director Kellogg, please.
Thank you. Just briefly, on your last point there about public meetings and having a forum, several of the people, and you know I've received a lot of comments on this, have asked why we're not holding an evening session somewhere in that schedule. And I don't know if we have time to do that now or the availability of the directors, but I just wanted to put that up because there are obviously some people who can't attend daytime meetings.
We will discuss. Currently now, our schedule is March 18th and also the March board meeting, but we'll definitely have a conversation around it and get back to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you, General Manager. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Please, go ahead.
I have been receiving a lot of questions about our immediate term sort of political and funding strategy. I know that you touched on the House bill that seems to be moving forward to create a task force and that has bipartisan support. I wondered if you or perhaps JC could talk a little bit more about some of the conversations that you've been having in Salem.
I'm going to go ahead and bring JC up.
Okay, thank
He
you.
was just down there just this week.
Thank you.
That is a very good question, Director Graham. When we've had a lot of the questions beforehand, all last fall after the referendum, after we saw the referral, we began talking to House and Senate leadership to figure out what steps we needed to take to figure out funding sources. As what there was appetite for was a funding task force because we wanted broad bipartisan support. And so that is really the route that we're taking, is to figure out the committee, which does have support. It has passed out of the House Transportation Committee. It's now in the Budget Committee. We have found that it meets very little fiscal impact, so we are very hopeful that it will continue on. The constitutional deadline is March 8th, which we are working against. But that this was the first step in trying to figure out that much larger support for some sort of a tax or some sort of a funding source for transportation. Does it come in time to save our fall service impacts? No. But at this point in time, there is very little appetite for any sort of tax increases, and we've seen that as we saw the the signatures being gathered to refer the current transportation package vote. And so we are very hopeful that the Transit Funding Task Force can take that up and to figure out a funding task force that will work. And I know that Director Frisbee is on that visioning committee. This committee will nestle somewhere in that visioning committee to look at the much broader tax look at and transportation aspects of what we need in the state. So we're hopeful. I continue to remain hopeful that we will have movement. There is a lot of taxes and funding ideas that are swirling out there. Again, when you look at any sort of data, what people's appetites are for taxes, there is no appetite for it. In fact, what we continue to hear is for tax reform for around the state. And so we're trying to figure out the best path forward in finding a sustainable revenue source that meets with what Oregonians are looking for. Does that help answer that question? We're taking steps, and we're working with, obviously, the governor's office. We just met Monday afternoon with them because of the visioning committee, because of the task force that we're working on, trying to find the right path forward in finding that sustainable revenue source.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, JC and General Manager Dessou. To your question, Director Graham, I think from spending a significant amount of time down in Salem on a number of matters, I think if we know anything to be true, it's that regardless of what happens in 2027, even in a best-case scenario, we're not going to be able to close our gap strictly through a renewed approach to state funding mechanisms. We're going to need to have a more dynamic and robust conversation at every level of government, particularly with our regional partners and with our local partners to figure out how we can sustain ourselves and maintain the integrity of our system long term. And I think if we're solely banking on the state to bail us out here, we're going to be in for a great deal of disappointment come June of 2027.
Thank you again. We'll now turn to today's consent agenda. Items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, the consent agenda consists of 3 items. First one is approving the minutes of our last meeting of January 28. Second is the resolution directing that all ordinances be read by title only. And the third is the resolution number 260204, authorizing contract modifications with Stacy Whitbeck and Rainier Construction for mechanized track maintenance services. Does any director wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. The item's been moved and seconded. We'll now move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to our resolutions on the regular agenda. We do have a special resolution today before we move to the regular resolution. As Director Graham has shared earlier, Ms. Robertson, who passed away last month, served on TriMet's Committee on Accessible Transportation for over 20 years. And I have a resolution here for the board that I would like to read. Resolution honoring Claudia Robertson. Resolution of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon honoring Claudia Robertson for her decades of advocacy and leadership in accessible transportation. Whereas the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, and its Board of Directors wish to honor the life, service, and extraordinary contributions of Claudia Robertson, a steadfast advocate for accessible transportation and a trusted advisor to TriMet for more than 2 decades. And whereas Claudia Robertson began her service on the TriMet Committee on Accessible Transportation, CAT, in 2001 and served with distinction for over 20 years, including as vice chair, offering consistent, thoughtful, and candid guidance to help advance equitable transit for people with disabilities. And whereas Claudia Robertson co-chaired the Accessible Transportation Fund Advisory Committee beginning in 2003, helping to guide investments that expanded access to transportation options and strengthened mobility and independence for riders across the region. And whereas Claudia Robertson also served as a member of the Division FX Community Advisory Committee as TriMet launched its first FX line in 2022, bringing her deep expertise, lived experience, and unwavering focus on accessibility to a transformative transit project. And whereas Claudia Robertson carried unparalleled institutional knowledge of TriMet's vehicles, individual bus and rail routes, and the evolution of the agency's accessibility policies, and she consistently applied the knowledge to improve planning, design, and operations. And whereas Claudia Robertson led with both heart and fire determination, earning deep respect for her tenacity, integrity, and unwavering commitment to equity, and she consistently raised the bar for universal access by holding public institutions accountable to plan for and deliver transportation services that are accessible, safe, affordable, and reliable for all riders. And whereas through her leadership, Claudia Robertson built community, mentoring new committee members, staff, strengthened partnerships, and established a lasting legacy of impassioned, effective, and principled advocacy. And whereas Claudia Robertson's legacy will continue to shape TriMet's work, values, and commitment to accessibility and equity for years to come. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the TriMet Board of Directors and TriMet staff hereby honor the life of legacy of Claudia Robertson and express their deepest gratitude for her decades of service, leadership, and advocacy, and be it further resolved that this resolution be entered into the official record of the TriMet Board of Directors, that a framed copy be presented to Claudia Robertson's family as an expression of our profound respect, appreciation, and remembrance. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Before anyone on the board comment, I would like to give our General Manager, Sam Dessou, a chance to say a few words. Sam.
Thank you, President Kim, members of the board. With the recent passing of Claudia Robertson, TriMet lost a longtime friend, an advocate for our riders, and an ally of people experiencing disabilities. Through her work on our Committee for Accessible Transportation, Claudia influenced policies and changes that made our transit system more inclusive and equitable for all. Claudia's family has been part of TriMet quite literally for decades, and they will be with us for years to come. The Robertson Tunnel, the deepest tunnel in North America, and a critical part of our MAG system, is named for Claudia's husband, Bill Robertson. He formerly served as president of TriMet Board of Directors. And to this day, their son, Dave Robertson, works as the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the Port of Portland. What a meaningful family legacy of public service and transportation. And I'd like to thank Dave as well as his siblings, Mark, that I just met, and Mary, for taking time to be here with us this morning. Claudia served on the CAT until her passing late last month. She worked side by side with Jan Campbell, a founding member and longtime chair of the CAT. Jan joins us now to share a few words about Claudia, along with Eileen Collins-Turvey, our Director of Accessible Transportation Programs. Claudia was near and dear to her heart. Jan.
Thank you. I'm Jan, and I'm the chair of CAT, and I'm going to try to get through this. And if not, Eileen will finish it for me. Claudia made an impact on me in so many lives with her strong advocacy, wisdom, and kindness. She became more than a vice chair to me for so many years. She was also my best friend, and we called each other sisters. We really never went out socially, but she was always there for me as a chair and provided strong leadership and advocacy on many TriMet and other committees she served on. I always say she was really the one that should have been recognized. She really was my memory, the historian, and if I forgot something or she wanted something said, she and I would text back and forth and talk about it later, and of course in a very kind way. We didn't always agree on things, and she always would be sure her opinions were heard because of passion for making transportation welcoming and accessible to all and in a kind way. She never wanted to hurt anybody, and sometimes when she'd say things in meetings, she would text me or call me and say, "Jan, I hope I didn't hurt so-and-so's feelings." She was a very strong advocate, and she had so much knowledge behind her, and she remembered that knowledge. She spoke her mind, and people would listen, and she changed people's lives, all for the better. She dedicated her life to her family and helping others, specifically older adults and persons with disabilities. Other groups she served on was the Portland Commission on Aging, Ride Connection for so many years, and she delivered Meals on Wheels. I will miss her terribly, as we all well, but we need to continue her legacy in the transportation area. Again, making public transit accessible and welcoming to everyone. I will miss our conversations because we both lived alone, and if we just wanted to talk, we would call or text, and there would be a quick response right back. We talked a lot about technology and how it was leaving so many people out. And if we had problems with technology, we would laugh about it because that is the one thing that we couldn't help each other out with. We were texting just before her passing, and I think we both knew that it was coming close, but we just wouldn't say it. But she did say, please remember to keep older adults in your conversations. Claudia, my dear friend, because of your dedication, strong advocacy, and never giving up, we shall see everyday changes in our built environment. In our built environment and policies every day that have been in place and improve the lives of everyone. And you see, I remember, especially for older adults and persons with disabilities. We and so many others promise to continue your legacy, as so many others will. I love you, and you will always be part of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Kim, Director DeSue. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to share just a few brief stories about a woman who touched so many lives. As Sam has shared, Claudia was the Vice Chair of CAT for the last 25 years, also helped with the Accessible Transportation Fund Advisory Committee, Division FX, and so many other committees. And as Sam mentioned, the name Robertson is so familiar because her husband, Bill, was the president of the board for many years, where he helped lead the effort to extend the Blue Line and build the tunnel that now bears his name. But Claudia's advocacy was deeply personal. It was when Bill became ill and eventually lost his mobility that she experienced firsthand the daily challenges that older adults and people living with disabilities face in navigating the world. What began as love and partnership grew into a lifelong commitment to equity, dignity, and access for others. I had the privilege of working with Claudia for the past 15 years across 3 different organizations, Clackamas County, Ride Connection, and now TriMet. It was a tremendous gift for everyone who knew her to be able to learn from her. For her 25 years as Vice Chair of CAT, she mentored more committee members than I can count, and they all have fantastic stories to tell about everything they learned from Claudia. She helped them deepen their understanding of TriMet systems while also helping TriMet staff better understand the real barriers that limit access for older adults and people with disabilities. She built bridges wherever she went, between systems and people, between policy and lived experience. I like to think that Bill may have been the vision behind the tunnel, but Claudia was the light at the end of it. Her heart was expansive and generous, whether she was advocating for accessible transportation, food security, or basic human dignity. In the end, that enormous heart simply carried more than it could hold. We will miss her smile, her grace, her tenacity, and her unmistakable gumption. In one of our final meetings with her, she told us to fight like hell. We had to keep fighting for older adults and people with disabilities, and we intend to honor her legacy by doing just that. We will fight the good fight. And even more importantly, we will continue to build relationships, deepen understanding, and lead with compassion and empathy, because that is the legacy that Claudia left us with. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we vote, does the board have any comments? Yeah, thank you. With it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. And we'll, if Dave and the family member could come up, we'll deliver the resolution. Physical plaque of it. Thank you. Thank you all. We'll now move to resolution number 2. We'll now consider resolution number 260205, authorizing a modification to the design services contract with KPFF Inc. for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. Mr. General Manager, please provide your comments on the resolution.
Vice President Kim, members of the board, at the June 2024 meeting, the board approved a contract with KPFF for the design services for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project in the amount of $17.5 million over a 6-year term. We are seeking board approval for a modification to increase the authorized amount by $12.5 million, bringing the total contract amount to $30 million. The 82nd Avenue Transit Project is currently in 60% design, with this phase of the project expected to wrap this summer. As design has progressed, the scope of the work has grown beyond what was outlined in the original RFP, and I want to walk you through the 3 main drivers of the increases. First, PBOT betterments starting in 30% design. TriMet agreed to include separate PBOT major maintenance project scope as a betterment to the KPFF contract. Under the betterment IGA with the city, TriMet will manage design through 100% and construction, with the city reimbursing TriMet's costs, including design services during construction. The project design cost is about $7.5 million, and again, these costs will be reimbursed by the City of Portland. Second, TriMet betterments. We are also reviewing opportunities to fold in scope from other planned TriMet projects that overlap or interface with the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. These funded internally with TriMet capital funding, separate from the core project budget. The project cost is about $450,000. And then third, expanded transit design efforts. Additional design work is needed to meet federal funding requirements, respond to agency and community interest, and to reflect an increase established budget project. This includes BAT lanes and reflects the decision to maximize BAT lanes on all 7 miles of 82nd between Lombard and Clatsop, with the exception of the intersection with Powell Boulevard. It also reflects a change in project scope and budget that increased from the original 2024 RFP amount of $315 million to the revised budget and scope totaling $346 million. The project cost of the additional design work is $4.5 million. This will be paid for by the project. There are no planned changes to the TriMet's financial share of the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. TriMet's funding contribution commitments to the overall project remains unchanged. It is important to note that the overall project cost of the 82nd Avenue Transit Project is approximately $346 million, and about $150 million of which is anticipated to be provided by an FTA grant. The requested modification is included in the current and approved FY 2026 Capital Improvement Program budget for the Engineering and Construction Division, as well as proposed FY 2027 CIP budget, and will continue to be included in future proposed FY budgets. And I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Desu. Does any board member wish to comment? Yes, Director Frisbee, please.
There are a couple of different ways I could comment on this, but the way that I'm going to choose to comment is that I appreciate the coordination with PBOT on the betterment work, and I think this is the sort of coordination and alignment that people want to see from their local government agencies. In doing this, we are actually reducing overhead costs for both agencies and helping the project move forward more smoothly. So I want to highlight that and express my appreciation both for TriMet and for PBOT. And then I will just, as a small asterisk on this, I know this is a conversation the board has had before, but it is always, it's a little bit challenging as a board member to parse through these sort of significant increases in these contracts. Working through this one, I think we all understand, I don't want to speak for my other board members. I understand how it happened. But it is, I think it's just something we should all be cognizant of.
Thank you. Director Flowers?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vice President Kim. And to that point, you know, maybe this is less of a comment than it is a question. I wonder, as technology continues to progress in this space, how we as an agency are exploring not just cross-coordination with other public entities to decrease overhead, but ways that we might be able to automate certain parts of these processes to save the agency money at scale through some of the technical parts of the design work and the construction side of, or excuse me, pre-construction side of these major projects that we're undertaking. I don't know if that's something we have an answer to right now, but it's something I'd be interested in exploring long term.
Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead. Director Graham?
Looking forward, I would love to hear updates on the conversations around closing the gap on 82nd. I recognize that this does not increase our TriMet's obligation in the project, but we also know there's a gap. So it would be wonderful to just have ongoing updates for the board on that front. Thank you.
Will do. That's something that's critical to our path, and I'll make sure the board is updated.
Great,
Thank you. Now, may I have a motion to approve resolution number 260205?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, we have two resolutions that were next up on the agenda having to do with hydrogen supply and construction, specifically resolution number 260206 and resolution number 260227. But it is my understanding that those resolutions has been pulled from this month's agenda. General Manager Dessou, would you kindly provide comments on those resolutions?
Yeah, thanks, Vice President Kim and members of the board. We are working on some additional details with one of those contracts. As we prepare our initial venture into hydrogen fuel cell battery electric buses for the upcoming 82nd Avenue Transit Project and the resulting frequent express services that will come to the corridor. Because we have two resolutions, they're related, we would like to hold both until we get those details worked out before coming forward. And for now, we expect to bring them to next month's board meeting.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that pursuant to TriMet Code Chapter 2, Section 2.15B, the General Manager has pulled from the agenda Resolution number 260206 and Resolution 260227 prior to consideration by the board, and has advised the board that those matters will come back to the board at a later time. We'll now consider Resolution number 260208, approving an amendment to the FY 2026-27 State Transportation Improvement Fund Plan. General Manager, again, please provide your comments on the resolution.
Vice President Kim, members of the board, this amendment that we're requesting captures a $21 million reduction in the FY 26-27 STIF, Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Plan, mostly due to a reconciliation of project carryover funds and the actual amount that came in. The board adopted FY 2026-27 STIF plan in December 2024. The plan allocated more than $223.7 million in statewide transportation improvement funds for TriMet, Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties, separate partner transit services in Clackamas County, and the city of Portland and Ride Connection. When we submitted the plan in January 2025, it included an estimate of the carryover amount after FY 2025 closed. We, along with our regional partners, reconciled the books and calculated the actual carryover funds. As I mentioned, the total was about $21 million less than the original estimate. Let me bring in Tom Mills, who's here, and also Debbie Gregg. Tom's our Director of Mobility Policy and Planning, and Debbie is our Director of Grants, to give you an explanation.
Good morning, Vice President Kim and TriMet board members. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Tom Mills, Director of Mobility, Planning and Policy, and I'm joined by
Debbie Gregg.
there you go.
Green is good. Debbie Gregg, Director of Grants.
And we're here today to talk about the FY 26-27 biennial STIF plan amendment. We'll go to the next slide, please. So just to remind ourselves, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, or STIF, was part of House Bill 2017, approved by the Oregon legislature in 2017. And it was it's a 0.1% payroll tax imposed on all payroll across the state with the intention of improving, maintaining, and expanding public transit throughout the state. The funds come to us biennially by the Oregon Department of Transportation, and TriMet serves as the qualified entity for the Tri-County region. What that means is we are responsible for developing a plan once every 2 years for how we're going to spend those funds. And it's not a plan just for TriMet, it is a plan for all of the partners in the three-county area. So that includes areas outside the TriMet district in Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties. Additionally, we are responsible for distributing those funds as well as conducting compliance on programs, not just our own, but also our partners outside the TriMet district. And also I want to include Portland Streetcar, Ride Connection, and the Clackamas County providers. Next slide, please. So we're currently in the FY 26-27 biennium, and this board approved the plan for this biennium in December of 2024. However, that plan was built on revenue estimates that were made in August of 2024. So you can see we developed a plan on revenue estimates that were developed a year prior to the plan actually being put into place. And the board adopted it in, as I mentioned, in December of 2024, authorizing $223 million in projects. Additionally, as part of that plan, and as Sam mentioned, TriMet, as well as our partners, had to project out what our spend was going to be for the last 6 months of the plan period. And because of the fact that we all have to project out, ODOT and the Oregon Department of Justice authorized QEs, like TriMet, to submit a one-time plan amendment to true up our actual expenses with our projections. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Debbie.
Great. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in summary, basically the STIF plan amendment has no new increases in revenues, no new projects. We're really just truing up our estimated carryover to our, that's okay, I could probably do it from memory. No, that's fine. Estimated actual carryover to our true actual carryover. And so in essence, this decreased our plan by almost, as Sam mentioned, $21 million to $202.7 million for the total QE plan. Next slide. And this just gives a summary based on all the providers, including TriMet, on what our plan changes were going to be. As you can see, ours was the greatest decrease in carryover of $24 million. It's kind of a good news, bad news to report here. Good news was we were able to utilize $24 million in STIF resources in the prior year. 14 million in operations and 10 million in capital, which is great. Bad news, we don't have those funds this year to utilize, so those will definitely be adjusted in our budget for the operations. And then some providers had estimated lower carryover, and their actual came in higher, so they have updated their plans for that so they can utilize their STIF revenues. So that netted out at a $20.9 million decrease in plan. And we would be happy to answer any questions.
Please go ahead, Director Graham.
Thank you. I was curious, is the 24 million in previous adjustments, is that in line with previous adjustments, or is it higher or lower when we've had to do these previously?
This is the first time we've actually had a decrease in our carryover where we've been able to utilize our fund. We usually have a little bit more carryover funds, but because we were able to, move some towards operating expenses that were utilizing those funds and move from capital projects that weren't either on hold or had different funding sources to capital projects that were utilizing those funds. And so this is the first time, I believe, in the history that we've had a decrease in our carryover.
Okay, thank you. That squares with what I was remembering from earlier conversations.
Thank you. Director Flowers?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. Quick question on this end. Was this decrease proactively factored into the conversation we're having about service reductions and cuts across the system, or is it something that we now have to adjust for on the back end?
That's a great question, Director Flowers. I'll answer first and then maybe kick it over to Tom. I don't believe the service reductions were incorporated into this particular. The carryover, we did utilize it to our operations, so we will be able to adjust for that specifically. So no capital projects will be, adjusted towards that, but maybe I'll kick it over to Tom on the service reductions.
Sure, I'm going to speak a little bit out of turn on behalf of the finance team. They do a great job projecting the funds and how much money we have and what our trends are for expenses. So this decrease in funding it's not that it's a decrease in funding, it's just we used it up. And that was, seen ahead of time. It is not resulting in more service cuts needing to be made. I think that's what you're getting at. That's
exactly what I was getting at.
No,
Thank
we
you.
do not need to, it doesn't make life worse than what it was, before.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. For lack of a better way of saying it.
Yes. Ready?
Thank you, and I just want to let the board know that I recommend your approval.
Of course. Thank you. Any additional board member comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolution number 260208?
So moved. Second.
Seconded. Moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. We will now consider resolution number 260209, authorizing a contract modification with TransDev Services, Inc. for the Lift Operations Contract Center services. Mr. General Manager, may I have comments from you?
Vice President Kim, members of the board, TriMet established the Lift Contact Center in 1991 to meet requirements set by the Americans with Disability Act. Today, the Lift Operations Contact Center centralized call taking, scheduling, and dispatching for Lyft paratransit services. TransDev has provided the work as well as managing coordination with companies that provide supplemental services for Lyft rides since March of 2022. The board authorized a 6-year contract with TransDev in the amount of $33.8 million. We are now seeking your approval to modify that contract amount to nearly $47.5 million, an increase nearly of $13.6 million. While that is a substantial increase, this is not a request for additional funds. It is simply an administrative action to add funds to the contract that are already budgeted for the remainder of fiscal year '26 and in the proposed budget for FY '27. These funds are necessary to address the added scope to the Lyft Contact Center to include the cost of supplemental services providers like Uber, UServe. Utilizing these supplemental providers saves TriMet over $7 million annually in lieu of Lyft's dedicated service. TransDev passes these costs through to TriMet without charging any additional fees for itself. Also, it is important to point out that since TransDev has established business relationships with these national ADA-compliant or complaint supplemental service providers, we are able to complete Lyft trips through those providers at substantial reduced rates compared to rides provided on dedicated Lyft vehicles. So I want to bring in Mary Hill, our Director of Transportation, and our Director of Accessible Transportation Programs, Eileen Collins-Turvey, to explain.
Good morning, Board of Directors. General Manager DeSue. I'm Mary Hill, Executive Director of Transportation, and here with Eileen to talk through this resolution and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I think we may even get to Director Kellogg's earlier question about increase in demand. We've got a slide deck. Thank you. Next slide, please. So again, today's requested action, we want to underscore we are not requesting any additional funds. Funding this modification is included in TriMet's Transportation Division budget for FY26 with several line item funding allocations, which will be combined. So right now we have a line item for supplemental service providers, a separate line item for our contact center. In order to pay the invoices for the contact center, the money needs to be approved on the contract because we can only spend up to what the contract authorizes. So we just want to take the budgeted funds, move that same amount into the contract amount so we can pay the invoices. The original contact center contract scope did not include supplemental service providers. It did provide TransDev the option to subcontract and leverage their relationships with national providers, as Sam mentioned, to help us further buy down the cost of service. And covering these costs, again, is a pass-through expense under TransDev's contract. It will exhaust that contract amount this fiscal year, and we won't be able to pay the invoices for TransDev for our reservation, scheduling, dispatch services without the additional funds. Next slide, please. So as executed in FY21, the Lyft Contact Center contract with TransDev had the responsibilities listed for Lyft reservations, Lyft scheduling, Lyft customer service, Lyft dispatch, technical system support with the option for subcontracting, but no scope included. Next slide, please. Pre-pandemic, TriMet held a direct contract with Broadway Cab as our only supplemental provider. I think those of you who may have been here then heard some concerns about service that was provided locally through Broadway Cab. And it really highlighted for us post-pandemic when Broadway Cab didn't have as many operators return to service that we needed to diversify our portfolio of supplemental providers to not only bring the cost down, but to bring the service up. So TransDev leveraged their relationships with USERV, which is a transportation network company that meets all the safety-sensitive federal drug and alcohol program requirements that our bus operators do. Big Star, which is a minority woman-owned business out of Dallas that helps local minority firms build their own companies in service to TriMet. So we have 13 routes that we run every day with that firm. We're really happy that we can continue to grow that relationship, as well as Uber, that we considerably buy down our cost of service with customers who opt into receiving trips on Uber. And then we still have a small contract through TransDev now with Broadway Cab so that they manage all of those contracts. They do the procurement, they do the pass-through billing, all of that comes into their contract. And as I mentioned, leveraging their relationship help us to decrease those costs. I have a number. Oh, it's the next slide. That's the beauty. Next, please. So when we look at the number of trips provided by supplemental providers, it's about, we only list Uber and USERV here on the top slide, but over 87,000 trips that are provided by those two providers. That would be $15 million if TransDev provided those trips, and it's about $7 million when we do it through subcontracted providers. When we look at our cost per mile, TransDev cost per mile is about $9.73, going down to $2.55 for Uber, $4.23 for USERV, which you may wonder in the back of your head, I'm trying to anticipate Director Kellogg's questions. Why aren't we just putting all of our trips on these providers? because we could buy down a lot of service. We get service for ambulatory riders with Uber and Userve. They don't have wheelchair accessible vehicles. So it requires that we utilize our larger vehicles in service to make sure that all of our riders have access to accessible transportation. And when we look at the cost per passenger, Userve does about an average of a 15-mile trip. TransDev does on average 7.3-mile trips. So when we see our cost per trip is higher on Userve, they're doing a trip that's twice as long as the trip that TransDev is providing. But even with that, $63 per passenger versus $74 with TransDev, and Uber is at $34 per passenger. So really working to get more of our customers to opt in to receive trips through Uber. And that's my mic drop, that just saving $7 million. So I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, I didn't answer your question, though, about service resumption. We did about 30% of our trips to day support and supported employment and programs for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities pre-COVID. Many of those supported employment opportunities dropped off post-pandemic. They didn't have employers who were receiving people back in service. They didn't have employers who returned to work. They were working remotely, so they didn't have supported employment. Fortunately, for people in the IDD community, those opportunities are returning. And unlike a lot of fixed route riders who have maintained work from home, our riders, 85% of our riders are unemployed or underemployed. So going to and from work or working from home just never was an option for them. It's always been about access to medical appointments, grocery shopping, social service appointments, and day support and supported employment. So now we're seeing those opportunities return, and so the riders are returning with them. So that we'll get into some of that, how those trips are being funded the next time that you see me up here in a couple minutes. So I just whetting your appetite each time. So we are anticipating a 15% increase next year, which will take us well beyond pre-COVID ridership numbers, which means that support and growth in our supplemental providers is even more important, so that we don't have to keep growing our fleet and we can maintain the fleet that we have and turn to supplemental providers to grow local opportunities. Those are also providers who are using, low and no emission vehicles, so it helps to limit our carbon footprint as well.
Thank you so much. I have a question about the training for drivers of these supplemental services. And we've been talking a lot in the CAT about, looking at feedback, right, and about complaints by vehicle type and things like that. Could you speak to the training that they receive or are required to go through to participate?
Certainly. Just like TransDev has requirements for defensive driver training, they utilize Smith systems, National Safety Council level defensive driving classes, passenger sensitivity training, as well as other training components. Those are the passenger sensitivity is usually the core area where we get the most complaints. Big Star, our 13 route per day supplemental provider, partners with TransDev to get training curriculum from them so that they can impart the same training curriculum and credentials on those drivers. Userve has a nationally recognized training program, and one of the ways that they have built an accessible transportation network company is by expanding the training that they provide and require of their operators. That they operate their vehicles much like Uber, but they do have additional training requirements around serving passengers with disabilities and being sensitive to people with an array of disabilities. And Uber is the outlier there, that they have standard onboarding for their operators. And when our riders receive a trip on Uber, it's just as if those operators don't know that they're transporting a TriMet customer. They get a request for a trip just as if you or I were requesting that service. So they have a standard onboarding that we continue to work with Uber on passenger sensitivity, especially for blind and low vision riders who most often get passed up or refuse service. So that's an area that we continue to work with both Uber and Userve on refining their training requirements and expectations.
Thank you. I wonder if that's also an area where APTA or some, nationally, there could be some more pressure, collective pressure and encouragement on those rideshare services, if that's something that we are relying on and others are relying on across the country.
I serve on the Access Committee for APTA on their leadership team, and it is an area that we are focusing on as the transportation network companies are seeking to adapt federal requirements for TNCs. That this would be a very nice complement to what they're requesting some forgiveness for, to step up in this area. Absolutely great idea.
Great, thank you. Well, let us know how we can support that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Flowers.
Thank you so much. This is really, really helpful. Has there been, and this is kind of a shot in the dark question, any interest from companies like Uber in trying to procure the type of contracts that, for instance, in this case, we have inked with TransDev? Is this a space that you see providers trying to break into on the national marketplace?
Oh, gosh, from your lips to God's ears. I wish I could say yes. Wheelchair accessible vehicles are more expensive to purchase and maintain and operate than, a Tesla or a Prius, which many of their privately owned vehicle operators are operating. Uber is required in the markets that they operate in to have wheelchair accessible vehicles. They usually do that under contract. In Portland, Uber contracts with Big Star because we've helped them grow their base in Portland, but they don't have a large enough market share that they can really contribute reliable, dedicated service to us in that area. We are working with them to expand that, however.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you both. Really appreciate that overview that you both provide. Just want to conclude with saying funding for this modification is included in TriMet's transportation budget for FY26 and will be included in the division's FY27 proposed budget that's coming to you in March. It's also important to stress that these funds must be dedicated to paratransit service and cannot be used, I'll repeat, cannot be used for TriMet's general fixed route service. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 260209?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I will now request our General Counsel, Shelley Devine, to read ordinance number 381 by title only.
Thank you, Mr. Board Vice President. Ordinance number 381 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending and updating TriMet Code Chapter 19. This is the first reading and public hearing.
Thank you, Shelley. At this time, I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 381, amending and updating TriMet Code Chapter 19. Does anyone wish to speak regarding the ordinance? Seeing none, General Manager, following our first reading and the public hearing, do you have any comments on the ordinance?
Thanks, Vice President Kim, members of the board. Ordinance 381 will amend TriMet Code Chapter 19 with updates to definitions, procedural language, lift fare offerings, and employer pass language. One of the primary changes addresses a significant challenge and opportunity related to our Lyft paratransit service and providers that offer Medicaid-funded transportation benefits. Chief Public Affairs Officer J.C. Vanetta and Director of Accessible Transportation Programs Eileen Collins-Turvey and Jamie Surface, our Coordinator of Senior Fare Programs, are here to explain the changes proposed to the TriMet Code, including the change to lift fare offerings that we project will lead to the recovery of about $5 million in revenue over 2 years.
Good morning, Vice President Kim, directors. So we bring before you today fare code changes and updates. Please advance. To three main categories within the fare code. The first is the elimination of Lyft annual pass product as an actual purchasable product. The second is update to employer pass policy language. And the third is updating honored citizen terminology. Next, please. With TriMet Code 19, there's language in there that includes the price and the product of the Lyft annual pass. What is going on with this pass is that it is more of a convenience pass. There is no pricing discount for this pass. It is the equivalent of 12 months purchase at $74 for the total price of $888. Rather than, aside from being a convenience pass, we have discovered that over the past year and a half, as we continue to investigate our revenue, as well as understanding what is going on with Lyft passes in general, that agencies are circumventing a contractual loophole and are, instead of abiding by contractual obligations, they are doing a one-time purchase of a Lyft annual pass. What this is doing by eliminating this pass purchase, we are looking at recouping about a minimum of $5 million that we are losing over the next 2 years just with this product alone. Next, please. Here I have some information that we have looked at in terms of the annual pass purchase rate from year over year, starting in 2023. And you can see that there has been a stark and marked increase over the past calendar year of 103% increase in purchases. Along with these purchases, these aren't just Lyft riders purchasing and going, oh, I want to purchase a new annual pass. We have been seeing a drop-off from these agencies who provide Medicaid-funded rides via Lyft to having anywhere from 12 to 15 riders drop off of their registers every single month just out of one county. So we are considering, I mean, it is significant. We went from 267 annual passes purchased last year, or I'm sorry, 2024 to 542 last year. We do continue to see that increase. We have put a temporary suspension in place for purchasing those past products as we were preparing to bring this to the board. Next, please. Updating the employer pass policy language is the second. Please move forward. Here, again, we have considerations for the language that is included within the TriMet Code 19. With COVID-19, it brought about certain nuances that we had to do in terms of maintaining our employers as well as increasing and maintaining revenue that we were experiencing losses of both of those during the pandemic. What we have found is that the language within our fare code is outdated and restrictive, and it does not reflect a pricing that we can receive from employers, and it's unrelated to the trends and shifts in the market. The outcome for this is that it's going to be better, more dynamic, to be able to bring more products and options to employers and to be able to increase revenue across the system. Advance, please. The final is updating honored citizen terminology, please. Here we have language within our fare code that provides definitions and other language and partner and information on there that is outdated, and as we found, it is actually kind of discriminatory. So we are looking to amend and remove that language to be more inclusive, to provide language that is reflective of current products, and to be able to define Lyft card holders within the honored citizen classification, which currently does not exist. I think there's one more maybe. The financial impact for the all of these as a whole, we expect, again, that the Lyft annual pass elimination will bring at minimum $5 million in revenue as well as recoupment, and approximately $200,000 minimum updating employer place language, as well as the ability to reach out to more employers. So I will take your questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Frisbee.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have one brief question and then kudos. I was surreptitiously looking at the CAT members, and I wanted to make sure that this went to CAT and they're comfortable. And given that, Jamie, I'm guessing you're the person who figured this out. And I wanted to say thank you and congratulate you. This is a big deal, and this is the type of work that, as we're addressing our budget challenges, is incredibly important. And this is, I hope you went home after you figured this out and did something that brought you joy.
I went to Eileen.
Eileen also brings me joy, so.
And that brought her joy.
But thank you, and
Thank you,
congratulations.
Thank you so much. That's great. All right. Any other comments from the board member? Seeing none. All right, we will not be voting on the ordinance number 381 until its second reading, which will take place during our board meeting on March 25. However, at this time, well, we have no questions. So I think that's that for the ordinance. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our formal business for today. As the General Manager DeSue had mentioned earlier, we will have a special board session on March 18th that is public forum only to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the proposed service changes and cuts. We encourage the public to come to the meeting to provide feedback to the updated proposal being released on the first week of March. If you do plan on testifying in person or virtually, I strongly encourage you to sign up in advance online at trimet.org/meetings/board. Our next regular business meeting will be on Wednesday, March 25th, here in the boardroom. At this time, the board's business meeting is adjourned, and we'll take a 10-minute break before we begin a board briefing on the annual safety and security report. Thank you, everyone. Test, test. We'll go ahead and get started in 10 seconds. 10 seconds. All righty. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone had a nice break. We'll go ahead and get started on the board briefing on the annual safety and security report, and I'll ask General Manager for your comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice President Kim, members of the board. I have Chief Safety and Security Officer Andrew Wilson here to present our annual report on safety and security. This is a relentless pursuit for us here at TriMet. And I can say one thing about Andrew and his team, that it's that they never let off the gas. I'm talking they're constantly going, and I always tell them to keep moving forward, which that's one thing that he knows that I bring forward. Just continuous improvement is the name of the game, and this team has been everywhere over the last year. From updating our agency safety plan, to bringing the Portland Police Bureau back to Transit Police Division, working close with the Multnomah County DA office, to strategic deployment of hundreds of safety and security personnel, to installing blue light security phones at a growing number of our MAG stations and transit centers. And then those blue light phones are just one area where safety and security is really delivering results. So Andrew, don't want to steal your thunder. I know that you're getting ready to talk to him, so let me turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Sam. And relentless pursuits require support, and you've been there every step of the way. So thank you, General Manager DeSue. Thank you, TriMet Board. Vice President Kim, again, good morning. And I am excited to share some things that we've been kind of traveling along on the safety and security side this year that you may not be aware of. We try to give you an annual report on safety and security each year, and so that's what we're doing today. Again, back to this relentless pursuit, and keep pushing, because he does say that all the time, keep pushing, and I love that. I have an incredible team, and I have 3 directors that relentlessly pursue with me, and if I could just ask them to stand up in the back. Yeah. So Tom Hunt, our Director of Security, Craig McDonald, the Director of Safety, and Jesse Harvey, who's our Director of Emergency Management. They do, I'm going to be sharing a lot of their success stories this morning, but I just want to point them out and the great work that they do for this agency, putting safety first. So I'm going to start today with safety, and so this is in Craig McDonald's shop, but we're going to talk about safety management systems. I think it's been a couple years since we've given you an update on the safety management system implementation plan here at TriMet. This is an FTA standard that all transit operators have to comply with. We actually had to submit our SMS implementation plan, have it reviewed. SMS is Safety Management Systems. This actually originated from the FAA. If you remember in the 80s and 90s, or even in the 70s, there was a lot of plane accidents. There's not quite as many. They developed a very good system called SMS, which was then transferred to FTA, and that's what we have been marching down really over the last 10 years, but particularly in the last 5 with our implementation plan. And I just want to give you an overview of how that works here at TriMet, and to really let you know that SMS is embedded in everything we do at this point, which is a great success story for TriMet and for the safety division in particular. So there's 4 pillars of SMS, the first being safety policy. And if we go to the next slide, some examples of that at TriMet, our agency safety plan is an element of the pillar of safety policy. We also comply with regular OSHA required safety programs. We actually instituted and developed and implemented 13 this year. And we do extensive collaborative reviews and updates to things like our on-track safety manual, electrical safety program, both of which took place this year. And those are reviewed and signed off on by everybody in operations. So this is just an example of some of the safety policy pillar work going on. If we go to the next slide. Safety risk management, the second pillar of SMS. Some examples, we do have workplace safety committee programs. If you've read through the ASP, you'll know that we have these groups participating everywhere across the organization at different locations. They're made up of management staff as well as frontline employees and safety personnel as they go through and work on identifying hazards together, ranking those hazards, and just making sure that we're doing good safety work out on the system. We also have a robust request for safety program. You'll hear it called as RSA if you're out traveling with our employees. And these are ways for frontline employees to really flag an issue immediately, and they get resolved by operations management and directors as we look into those issues. We track how long it takes for us to actually respond to those, and you can see most are responded to in that 0 to 30 day. But some of them are more longer term because they're larger issues that require multiple stakeholders and multiple divisions working on them. But just another example of safety risk management here at TriMet. If we go to the next slide, the third pillar, safety assurance. This is really just making sure that our safety programs are working. I will tell you we have 5 independent safety reviews that we have to complete alongside our state safety oversight agency, which is ODOT, and we submit these to both ODOT and FTA. Those are internal safety reviews that we agree to basically an audit that safety will perform on different divisions or elements that we have added just to make sure that we are achieving the safety outcomes in those new items. We have safety investigations that are ongoing, and we do have a 24-hour response and a safety duty officer program. These folks are well trained to respond to accidents out on our system. You might recall that every one of our major incidents, and there's actually a definition for this, have to be reviewed by ODOT, and the investigation has to be completed alongside ODOT because they are acting as our state safety oversight agency. Those also are submitted to the FTA. And so we have to have an investigative response here internally, and our safety team handles that very well. We have a 2-hour response criteria for a major incident, so we have to update our state safety oversight within that period. We also then have a 24-hour, and then we complete the report over the 30 days. And so if there's ever a major incident at TriMet, a pedestrian strike or large accident, anything like that, know that in the background we are achieving a very large investigation alongside ODOT, and that is submitted to them and approved as well. So, and if we go to the last pillar, safety promotion, you'll see us doing full-scale exercises at times. I've talked to some of you about these. We did one out actually at the Robertson Tunnel a couple years ago. We have to do one with Wes every 2 years, and these are full-scale exercises with our law enforcement partners, with fire department, Tualatin Valley Fire, things, great partners that we have to train and drill for worst-case scenarios, and that's part of the safety promotion as well as training opportunities and awareness. So this is SMS, these 4 pillars in action, and I just wanted to give you some examples this morning that this is well done here at TriMet. We're fully implemented, and that's been a lot of work over these last several years to bake some of these processes into what we do and keep safety first. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to switch over to emergency management at this point in time. We have a new director of emergency management, Jessie Harvey, who stood up in the back. She's been helping us develop a very good comprehensive continuity of operations plan, or COOP as you've heard of it called probably. These are the key functions of a COOP, or the mission essential functions, essential systems, records, and resources, and also orders of succession following an emergent event. And these are really, really impactful training opportunities for us all to really understand what a post-emergent event looks like and how we recover. Jessie is going to have that completed alongside the TriMet executive team in 2026. So we're excited to have a new COOP post-COVID. A few things have changed if you haven't noticed. since 2018, and so we're excited to push that forward and land that in 2026, and you'll all have the ability to look at that as well. So if we go to the next slide, I do want to give you an update on the Security Operations Center. A couple key metrics that we've been tracking and have updated percentages. We do have a 30% faster response time here at TriMet, and that's really getting our resources out to an event. It's much faster now with the SOC up in place. We have a 40% improvement in de-escalation, and that is really tracking those events that we can resolve without waiting for law enforcement. Again, that speeds up our system. It provides a safer experience. And so we are really tracking these two metrics as well as a few others. But I wanted to update you on that because this has been a very good success for TriMet in mitigating some of the security events that we have out there. The Operation Command Center does an amazing job of keeping the trains in safe operation. The SOC is really there to help with those security incidents so that we're not slowing down operation, and we're providing a safe experience and a response capability with surveillance capabilities as well. So if we go to the next slide, a couple other 3 different kind of SOC accomplishments for this year. I will let you know that our Security Operations Center is very involved with all major events now in the City of Portland. The City of Portland often co-locates some of our leadership staff at some of their emergency operations centers because we have access to camera systems and good information from operations. So when you're thinking about parades, large concerts, protests, anything where there's a lot of people in the City of Portland, our SOC is really embedded into that now and demonstrates our ability to be a good partner as we protect the assets of the city and keep things rolling. We do get a great predictive analysis report now from a vendor that we contracted with. I get that report. It's pretty busy, so I'm just going to show you a few elements of it, but it does allow us to strategically deploy better as well, which has been a very, very good opportunity for us. And we are seeing continual upticks in the increased use of ridership tools. So this is really that 238 ride option 9 number. If you want to call the Security Operations Center at any point in time, you can get in touch with them. The Public Affairs Department has been doing a really good job of trying to advertise that out on buses and trains. You'll see some of those advertisements if you're using the system. But we are having 80 to 85 daily contacts. So these are actual riders calling into our Security Operations Center, making us aware of an uncomfortable experience. And then we're measuring how fast we can address that. We also have 56 weekly calls into our blue light security phones. That is continued to increase as we install them. We will be fully installed by the end of this year, which is very exciting on the places that we actually own, so platforms we actually own out on the system. But we're excited to kind of continue to refine and enhance what the Security Operations Center can do to help TriMet. So if we go to the next slide, here's the number of kind of just broken out the dispatch calls and the types of disturbance issues that they're addressing. Recall, I think I've told you before, but we do monitor all of our elevators as well in the Security Operations Center. So a lot of these calls are for things that are happening inside elevators or at platforms, not just on vehicles. If we go to the next slide, these are the hotspot data. Again, that's a pretty busy slide, but you can kind of see some of the areas that we have some of the most security incidents and call-outs. We can go to the next slide. Want to give you an update regarding our transit police. This is a great picture of myself and Sam and members of our transit police underneath the Christmas tree there at Pioneer Courthouse Square. They were doing a mission out there, and Sam and I grabbed them and got a photo op. I will tell you, Captain Matt Jordan is in the back still, and a key partner. He's our transit chief. And we are growing this team. You might remember that we had 22 transit police members at the beginning of this year. We are now up to 32. We've had some key investment from the Portland Police Bureau into our teams with 6 folks. We've had 3 additional from the Port of Portland, and we also got 1 from Lake Oswego. which is the first member from Clackamas County we've had in a while. So we are growing this team and have plans to grow it further this next year. I'm going to give you kind of a high-level overview of some of the data we're seeing. So if we go to the next slide, with those increases, you can see that we have a bit of a migration from emergency-related calls down to non-emergency in the current 365-day period. That's a good sign. You want to see less emergency calls and more non-emergency. We're holding pretty much steady in terms of the calls for law enforcement since last year, the prior 365. But you can also see on this slide the time frames that most of our calls are coming in, and it's in that latter hour period, the evening, early evening. That's when most folks are calling for law enforcement. And so we staff that way purposely, and Matt does a really good job of staffing personnel on swing shift, which we'll talk about a little bit later. If we go to the next slide, this is also from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department. These are self-initiated calls, so this is actually proactive work law enforcement's doing out on the system. You'll notice that we have a very large uptick since the prior 365. That is indicative of those additional law enforcement personnel. And so with these investments, you do get more self-initiated calls, which is out on the system, which is a lot at times related to mission work, but it could also just be them writing the system and initiating a call themselves as they see something. So this is a good investment for TriMet, and we see these results. If you go to the next slide, this is actually related to the documented time that these wonderful partners are spending on our system. You can see a very considerable uptick in the amount of time they're actually on the system since last year. Again, this is representative of those additional personnel that we've had out there. You'll notice in this one, Central, East, and South, it's a lot larger on the west side, and that has to do with the fact that our west side, which is considerably smaller than the rest of the group, spend a lot more time on the system because they aren't getting dispatched to as many calls. So the central folks have a very busy job, and they're responding to a lot more calls, so they're being pulled off of static locations where they're providing just time on a platform or on a vehicle, which again I think represents our need to continue to add to this force. You might remember prior to 2019, we had 65. Currently, we're at 32. So we're still working those numbers back up. But we do have additional security tools as well. And so we're kind of monitoring as we grow our transit police force, what that healthy balance is and how we can affect change and safe change on our system the best way possible. So if we go to the next slide, this is a trend just for transit police. Remember that others respond to our system, not just our task force model transit police, but others, Portland Police, Gresham Police, if you call 911, whoever is in that location is going to try to respond. It gets dispatched differently. But our transit police, if they're on duty, they're going to try to prioritize that call and handle that call. Well, one of the things to remember when you're talking about adding additional law enforcement is they do more activity on your system. So what you're seeing here is in that sort of September timeframe is when we started to get all of these 10 on board, and you're seeing that large uptick in the amount of crime that's on the system. That's really just law enforcement addressing things with additional staff. We went from having a 4-day swing shift to a 7-day swing shift, and we added a shift on Friday, which was absent for the last 5 years. So as you do that and add law enforcement, you're going to see them address more crime. That's actually a good thing for TriMet. We do want people held accountable. So when you see this trend, just recognize what this represents as good law enforcement and healthier law enforcement personnel and numbers. Which is the majority of this. If we go to the next slide, I am going to call up another key partner right now, which is Julian Samuels. I love working with Julian. I actually really like him as a person too. I think he knows that. But anyway, I love Fest. So I'm going to let Julian kind of take away for his results over this last year and kind of give us an update. But Julian has been an amazing partner, and I want to just give it over to him.
Thank you, Andrew, and good morning to the board. I appreciate you all allowing me to speak here again. And we had a successful year in 2025. for prosecution at the district attorney's office as it relates to transit cases. Could I please get the first slide? So the first slide, that comes from our referred cases, and that comes from transit police. As you can see, it starts in 2020, goes to 2025, and in 2020, obviously, to 2022, we had the COVID restrictions. So that's why you see the lower numbers. But in the past 3 years, where Brian Hogan and myself have been handling the cases, you're going to see an uptick every single year in the referred cases from transit police. And I'll echo what Andrew said about that. In 2025, we did get more transit police officers, and you see 76 case increase from 2024 to 2025. And that does not mean that the system is getting more dangerous. That actually means the system's getting safer, because that means more people are getting arrested, which then prevents negative interactions with the transit riders as well as with people just in the community who are near the system as well. So that case increase from 2024 to 2025 of 76 cases, that's 76 more times transit police was able to intervene and stop either a violent crime or stop also continued drug usage or stop somebody from trespassing who shouldn't be there. So that is a positive increase that I believe is going to continue into 2026. Next slide, please. Now, this is also a breakdown from 2020 to 2025 of misdemeanor and felony cases. And as we see, every single year from the last 3 years, there's been an increase in the amount of cases referred by case type. That's also a direct result of more law enforcement on the system. What you see is more misdemeanors. That's typically how it's going to be every single year for transit. But there's a big increase in 2024 to 2025 related to felony cases. And that's very important, because those are the cases that have crimes that can lead to injuries to persons or crimes that lead to destruction of transit property, which is also critical because each time a MAX or a bus gets damaged, that has to come out of the system. And the goal here is to keep the system safe as well as keep the system going. Next slide, please. The issuance rate, as you can see from 2020 to 2022, that was at its low, 53%, because of the COVID restrictions, up to 76% as COVID ended. What you'll see in 2023 to 2024 is a 7% increase in issuance rate. Now, that's also important and critical, because that is when this board invested more in the district attorney's office and brought Megan Irinaga and then Brian Hogan to assist me with issuing cases. That is when we took a hard stance on issuing more cases related to ATU members being victims of crime, as well as an understanding that we do have great CCTV video that helps with our cases. When we go to 2024 to 2025, a slight increase of 1% from 91 to 92, which is important because that increase to me shows a stabilization of the positions that I have and that Brian has. And that is a number that I expect to continue to be at 92 or continue to get higher. And that issuance rate is near the top or the top at the district attorney's office. Cases that come to transit, they have, as you all know, two DDAs who are very focused on transit cases, and specifically the need of protecting the transit riders as well as the community around the transit system. And when you see a 91 to 92 issuance rate, that also comes from the great leadership from Captain Jordan, who is helping to instruct the transit police officers on how to build cases that we can actually prosecute. It also comes from the safety and security team, who come in as witnesses, and we have confidence that they're going to be there and help us as the cases get to resolution. I will also note, over the past 3 years, we've had an 80% disposition rate, which means that 80% of the cases that do come in are getting resolved, which is also at the higher end of the district attorney's office. So, in closing, this is going to be my last meeting in this position. I will always be around for the transit family, as I call them, and I wanted to say thank you to Andrew Wilson for his support. Thank you to the board, and I appreciate the safety and security team and transit police always being here to help us prosecute cases. And special thanks to Brian Hogan, who was a great partner and who will continue this excellence that we're started back in 2023. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. And I've got a couple more slides, but I just want to say Julian's been a fantastic partner. He's now moving on to bigger and better things in the DA's office, which I am very sad about.
Just to be happy for him.
Yes, I know. And he knows I'm absolutely there for him in his career, and he's done amazing things for us. And also brought on Brian Hogan, which has done really incredible things, and he will continue with us. But just wanted to allow Julian to be able to share this last year because he was here the entire year, and he's done some incredible things. And I know he's going to be a continual partner of TriMet and our region for years to come. So thank you, Julian.
And sorry to interrupt, could we pause and
Yeah.
do a round of applause for
Yeah.
Julian? Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And you know, we work with a lot of amazing partners. We're doing some good things in the area, and key partners like the DA's office, Julian and Brian, are how we achieve these results. And so I just want to highlight that. I'm going to give you some more slides that you see regularly from me. Fair enforcement activity for this last year, you will see that uptick. We've had some staffing changes, and we're working with a new public safety manager. Tom Hunt's been really active in this as well, our director of security, but we're starting to see those fair enforcement activity numbers come up. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that same trend as we are fully staffed. And if we go to the next slide, we have reports of smoke and fumes. You guys have seen these slides from me for years now. We've had a pretty good trend line. This is for bus, and you'll see rail as well on the next slide. This trend has been coming down pretty significantly with the passage of Senate Bill 1553, HB 4001, dedication from our safety and security teams and transit police. This trend line is to the degree now that I may not share this with you next month unless you tell me you're going to have heartburn about it, but these slides are getting a bit stale. I will say we are going to get this to zero at some point. We are in that relentless pursuit stage, but just wanted to put that out. And we have two more slides, I think. Safety response team activities have increased, and you can see that level of activity. I do want to just not minimize, that's 14,000 interactions in a month with some of the most vulnerable people on our system, and so this team does incredible work out there for us. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see the safety response team, top 5 for January. Again, lots of welfare checks, lots of education, lots of wayfinding. There's a lot of folks out on our system that need a lot of help, and it's good to have teams like this to be there as a resource for TriMet and our community. And I think we are done. So thanks for listening through an annual report, but I want to open it up for questions, and please feel free.
Thank you. I'll go first, actually, and then Director Flowers. Kudos, thank you for the presentation and everything that, all the hard work that went into it. Not a question, but a comment. Taking a step back as we continue to grow, my urge would be to let us continue to be mindful of our budget crisis at the agency level, yeah. And during these trying times, you know, we're expected to do more with less, but with more, you know, I think we're expected to do much more, right? So I want to urge Sam and you, Andrew, to continue to, I know you both already do, continue to identify room for even more efficiency without compromising, I guess, effectiveness. And so thank you for keeping our system safe and secure. Director Flowers.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank y'all for the report. Thank you for the work that you do. I just had a quick question here. When you talk, Julian, about the increase in the number of crimes that we're prosecuting on the system, you noted that as a positive uptick. I think, if I'm understanding you properly, the reason for that is because we are now catching more things that are happening in our system in more proactive ways and being able to hold people accountable for those things. But would I also be correct in saying that long-term, we would not just like to see that number go up to reflect an increase in, I guess, surveillance on our system and, safety response folks on our system, keeping folks safe? We would want to actually start to see that number go down on the back end of this surge in enforcement on our system. Is that correct?
So, yes, that's correct. Ideally, the goal is to have less police contact, right? We want to have less police contact on the system. But in the same breath, we do want the issuance rate to be always high, because that means we're getting solid cases from transit police. So it works in both ways. We do want to have less police contact, but let's say, for example, we only have 10 times throughout the year of having police contact. Well, we would want to issue those cases 10 out of 10 if possible. So the goal is always less police contact, but always issue the cases that come in if that's just. So ideally, the referred cases would go down, but the issuance rate would always stay high.
That's perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that as we were talking through those numbers. Thank you.
Okay, Director Kellogg.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you both. Quick question on one of your slides, reported 2025 crime trends by month. It lists 3 separate crimes: a person crime, a property crime, and a society crime. Can you explain the difference between the 3 of those?
Yeah, well, there's different levels of charges, and actually Jillian can probably help this, but that they try to track those out by different line. Maybe you'd have a better, do you want to try to answer that?
So the person crime, that's going to be your assault, harassment. The property crimes, criminal mischief, so damage to transit property. And then the third category?
Society crime.
Society crime, that would be characterized, TriMet and CCTV does a great job of helping out other law enforcement agencies in the area. So a society crime might be, for example, someone doing a hit and run, but our camera 122nd catches that. So that camera is then able to assist with the prosecution as well as assist with the investigation related to that. So that's a society crime that's not exactly on the system, but the CCTV and the response we have from transit police and other law enforcement agencies who will contact transit police then counts into that category.
Okay, well, that's good news. I mean, given that it was the highest one by a factor of 10, that it's not happening on the system, but instead is caught by our security apparatus, I think is great. So, again,
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah,
please.
I was going to say, that is, and these are conversations, that we continually have. Access to transit and things adjacent to transit really do affect transit. When you look at the perception of safety, folks want to be able to navigate to their bus and their, MAX train safely. We have found that our surveillance technology has allowed us to be able to just ensure that our platforms and stations are safe. And what's adjacent to them, a lot of times, there's certain areas in particular that are pretty difficult neighborhoods, and we want to make sure that we're helping law enforcement deal with the issues that are right adjacent to our areas as well. And I just point that out because this is one of the things that TriMet does very, very well. We do lead well. In the public safety space, I think we've been able to focus folks on the areas that are going to help our riders, but those neighborhoods themselves have better safety outcomes. And so our surveillance and our ability for law enforcement and bringing transit police to neighborhoods and having good conversations about how to stand up good public safety community kind of based approaches in those areas are very effective. And we often are some of the most innovative, I think, in this space in the Portland metro area. And so, I've often said, if you're going to commit a crime, don't do it on TriMet. You're going to get caught with a better, you're going to get issued. We're going to have you on video, and we're going to have a DA there. And so I think that is creating a safer space for our transit operations, and it's also, I think, helping the community.
So 2 final thoughts, just as you come back in subsequent months. I'd love to hear more of an update on the closed access work that we're doing out on the Banfield, see what the results of those pilot programs are. And then last, to use this as a soapbox and reiterate, I beg each of you to please go out on a fair enforcement mission with Andrew's team. It's different than looking at a piece of paper in terms of what the conditions are out there, what abilities our officers have, and also their restrictions that, you know, I'd like to look at as a policy matter down the line. So, thank you.
I have just a couple of questions building actually off of what you were beginning to share. I was interested in looking at the hotspots map, and I was wondering, has that hotspots map changed at all in the last many years? And then secondly, to what you were alluding to, Andrew, like what is the work that we're doing in those communities to help address all of the other systemic issues that are leading to those being hotspots?
Yeah, great question. I'm getting flashing, oh, there it goes, there's green, it was blue for a minute. In terms of the community aspects, our director of security is often, and our senior vulnerable coordinator is often out in areas like 122nd, 148th, some of the areas that you'll see on this map that are some of the most difficult. They are meeting with community groups on a regular basis. We do have a camp abatement team that we use, which our senior vulnerable populations coordinator, Marissa Clark, engages them regularly to move folks off sidewalks and different other areas in the neighborhood, again, adjacent to transit. But they're standing up groups of people, and there's another one downtown at the Pioneer Courthouse Square, a security team that we have been really influential on kind of impacting and standing that group up and meeting regularly with them, sharing our insights, sharing their insights, talking about folks sometimes that offend just not on transit, but out in the community in multiple different areas. And so that kind of community approach is how we do things. We show up at a lot of different tables. Tom Hunt could tell you about the different various meetings he attends across the city with different security coordination groups to kind of deal with some of the issues. We have spent a lot of time, you might recall, out at the Oregon Clinic near Gateway with those folks. There'll be a conversation I'm just having after this about that. So lots of conversations with community groups and how to do public safety well, how to learn from what we've done from a security standpoint with our CPTED analysis, the crime prevention through environmental design. Our teams are often educating members, and I don't say this lightly, I mean on a regular basis out in community. And so you'll hear that from others if you ask about it. It's TriMet at the table on a security incident that's near them. They always are. So that's one thing. Have you seen migration to different locations? Yes, there have been. And usually what that indicates is we have done like extra, like with the Menlo Park community, we've done a lot of work at 122nd, a lot of CPTED related work out there, a lot of additional presence and personnel. We've seen some of that drug activity and dealing migrate east to 148th. And so then you have to deal with those issues. And so usually when you see the migration, it's because you're doing work at one location and it's traveling to another. The disappointing thing is often that is, you're just moving that. And so this is where law enforcement and key partners with the district attorney's office to address things like drug dealers that target our areas or around us are so important. And working with the community to eliminate attractive nuisance that sometimes bring crime elements to that area. And so, but you do see that migration. I'd say Rose Quarter and Gateway, 102nd, 122nd have always been kind of areas that we focus on a lot. But you know, as you do work on one, sometimes you see it go to another location. So.
And Director Graham, if I can add on top of that, I'd like to let the board know throughout the year, Transit Police does livability missions, and in the unit within the District Attorney's Office, Strategic Prosecution and Services, that the two transit DDAs work out of, multiple times neighborhood DDAs who are in certain areas in neighborhoods throughout the city go to business meetings with small business owners They go to community organization meetings with non-for-profits, and there's always requests to DDA Hogan and myself if transit police can do a livability mission there. And that's because transit police has a massive footprint throughout the county, as they have jurisdiction all throughout the county. And with the strategic prosecution and strategy also by the sergeants in transit police, they go to these hotspot areas and assist with livability issues. And they're continually doing that throughout the year, even though that means if it's multiple times at 122nd or 148th or downtown near the library. So yes, it's continually going down, I would say. Although, as Andrew said, it does, you put one spot down, another one comes up. But that's the impact of transit police, that even though they aren't the local police force in East Precinct, North Precinct, or City of Gresham, those areas are always asking for transit police to be there and conduct livability missions to assist with issues out in those areas.
All right, thank you. All right, no further comments from General Manager?
All I want to say is we have world-class employees that work at TriMet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Julian. That concludes our briefing. Thank you, everyone.